Welcome to the Black Writer Studio, a podcast presented by the Hurston Wright Foundation and hosted by Dr. Khadijah Ali Coleman. The Black Writer Studio is dedicated to showcasing Black writers who are transforming the world today with their literary pen and creating a legacy for the culture. Regina Brooks is the founder and president of Serendipity Literary Agency in New York, New York. Her agency is the largest African-American-owned agency in the country and has represented and established a diverse base of award-winning clients in adult and young adult fiction, nonfiction, and children's literature. So I think that you already know that you are a history maker with the work that you do and who you are, but I don't think our listeners know the full extent of the Wonder Woman who is Regina Brooks. When we talk about the literary landscape, knowing that it is disproportionately skewed, you then come into this space and have made so many opportunities for so many writers. And what's really funny is that I started working with the Hurston Wright Foundation in 2021, only to learn that we have an agent. I work for a nonprofit that has an agent, and that we have a book coming out. And our agent is none other than Regina Brooks. And I was aware of your history and the history of your fantastic agency. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, and starting with this work that you do with your agency? When I refer to it as the agency, tell me a little bit about the agency.
Sure. So the name of my agency is Serendipity Literary Agency. And it's funny because when I tell people that name, people get like, they love that word serendipity.
Yes.
It's kind of a magical word,
It
and it
is.
makes people feel like there's opportunity and that there's that something good is coming for them. And so
Yeah.
when I love using that word, and I'm when I think about the fact that that's the name of the agency. So the word serendipity is the idea of finding valuable things that you weren't looking for. And publishing definitely is that for me. I
Yeah.
wasn't looking to be an agent. I wasn't looking to be in publishing. I was looking to be an astronaut.
Yes.
That is what I
Do
wanted to
people
do.
even realize that you have a whole engineering degree?
Exactly. In another life, really.
Right.
Um, yeah, I was working as an aerospace engineer, and I was in the Maryland area, and I had a summer off, and I started working. I did a publishing program at Howard University. And I don't even know if a lot of people even know that, but that's how I ended up in publishing. And so I started work after I did the publishing program. I started working for John Wiley and Sons, and then in sales. So I had the DC, Maryland, that whole DMV area. And Howard University was one of the accounts that I called on, trying to get them to buy books. And then they moved me to John Wiley and Sons moved me to New York, and I became an editor. And I was working on engineering textbooks. And fast forward, I left Wiley and moved to McGraw-Hill. And I've been around for a minute. So this is the whole .com craze,
Right.
area time of, and when people were getting certified. And every, tech company and engineering firm company, they had a certification. So there was Microsoft certification and Cisco certification.
Mm.
So I started working on those books to help people get certified. And I was seeing all of these huge deals happening. And I was like, okay. And I was working with agents, but not a lot, but a few agents at the time. And I was like, oh, they're getting 15% of this, what I'm offering them. I need to go on the other side. And, I've always had this kind of entrepreneurial spirit about me anyway. And so I started my agency in 2000. So this year will be 24 years.
Wow. And
Yeah.
even when you were talking about .com, and that whole uh era, really,
Mm-hmm.
it seems so recent to me. And I realize I can't believe how time has quickly traveled so fast, where that's now of the past, and it's so normative now, so if I feel that way, you're in the midst of it, and this is your history that so then fast forward, you see what's happening. You decide, did you come up with the beautiful name Serendipity?
Came up with the name in partnership with a colleague that worked with me at Wiley.
Okay.
She's now, I think, in Berkeley. She's in California, San Francisco area. And she and I were just aces, ace boon coons. She was an editor at the time. And I was like, I'm going to start a company. And she was like, and I was like, help me come up with a name. And she helped me come up with the name.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
so
and it speaks to the fact that, sorry for cutting you off. It just
no.
speaks to the fact that every aspect of publishing is collaborative, even to
But but
naming. Yeah.
but it also it speaks of your whole journey. Your whole journey is serendipity. I mean,
Exactly.
you literally began as someone planning to be an astronaut. You have a whole engineering is not one of those majors where you decide after getting it, I'm going to go into something different. Like that's not typical, the investment, the time investment. So you literally shifted your whole life path once you started getting information and experience it, something that's what serendipity is. So tell me, when you started this company, what led to this transition between, because engineering texts are very different than the
Very
types
different.
of books that you now are helping authors sell to publishing companies. So when did that transition happen?
So it's interesting because, again, another serendipitous situation. So before I went into engineering in high school, I went to the School of the Arts. So my background is theater, dance, singing. And, my mom was like, that can be your plan B. And I was, and
Can we say, I want to be transparent in the fact that we were just talking about this before we started recording, and I want our listeners and our watchers in particular to know that this is the first time that I have ever seen Regina Brooks in the 2 years I've been engaged with her. Well, I do not see her hair. Um, Preface, and I've told you that you remind me of Diana Ross, your energy, and I'm a Diana Ross fan. And so for you to now tell me that this is something that you also was part of your training growing up. This makes perfect sense. Everything now makes sense to me.
yeah, I was that little girl doing flips and commercials and yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So I went to the School of the Arts and but I also had a love for science and math. And during the summers, I did during internships. I'm originally from Rochester, New York, and so
Okay.
we went to the School of the Arts in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
And anyone who knows Rochester back then in the 80s, it was very much it was kind of a hub for engineering and
Yeah.
science, and there were a lot of corporations there. And so the high schools really nurtured that. But it's also very much a creative and artsy town too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
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 you're
I
just
so I
well-rounded.
was
You
doing
just,
both. I was
yeah.
doing both, and I've always had that left brain, right brain thing going on.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's
So
balance.
yeah. So when I started my agency, the other serendipitous thing that happened was I was walking down Broadway and I ran into a friend who had gone to high school with me, and his name is Shane Evans. And he was an illustrator. And he said, "Oh my God, Regina, what are you up to?" And I said, "Oh, I'm in publishing." He said, "Oh, you should represent me." And I was like, "Oh, no, but I'm on the other side of publishing. I'm in-house." And he's like, "Well, if you ever become an agent, you should represent me."
Huh.
And he was African American illustrator, amazing illustrator, and he was my first client.
Wow.
And so my first client was an illustrator, wasn't an author. It was someone who
Right,
was working on
right.
children's books. And I was that in that the book that he illustrated was called How a Door Closes. Oh no, The Way a Door Closes by Anita Holt Smith. And it won the Boston Global Horn Award, which is a
Wow.
huge thing. And I was like, oh my God, I can do this.
Wow.
So it
Did you
was really
decide in that
exciting.
moment when he asked you, when you become an agent, was it in that moment where you were like, okay, I'll be your agent, or did it take some time for you to step into?
Yeah, we just ran into each other
Wow.
on the street on Broadway, and when I was working in the educational side, we didn't really work with agents. We,
Right.
as an editor, I was traveling all over the country trying to get professors to write books.
Wow.
Um, and so I wasn't even dealing with agents. And it wasn't until I went to McGraw-Hill that I started to work with a few agents who were representing, computer gurus, basically. And
Wow.
then so I saw him, and I remember it was in the fall. It was in the fall of 99. And I had been thinking about like what other things I might want to do in publishing, but the kind of the academic and the computer trade part of the business is totally separate from general trade publishing.
Yeah,
It's
it
like
is. Yeah.
totally two different worlds.
Right, right, right.
And so I started my company in January of 2000. So he was that idea was kind of imprinted in my
Mm-hmm.
mind from Shane, but I had already been thinking about it a little bit too.
Got you, got you. Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's so interesting how um it just it kind this journey kind of took a life of its own.
Yeah.
It just started. Go ahead, Regina. Like, and here you are now. And but it seems like you're really quick with understanding the cultural nuances of each space that you find yourself in, and in each step you still have the skill set, but you're just taking on another skill set as you become aware of what this culture that you're in now requires, and that's a skill in its own, to be flexible, to be open to the experience. And what I find, I'm really excited to have you here to talk about, because this speaks to your awareness of trends, your awareness of what folks are really interested in. You just founded a database um, for that, basically. Um, you tell me about the database. It's a database
Sure.
of agents of color, and tell me
Right.
what led to this, and what is,
Sure.
and it's open source. That's the thing that's really significant about this as well. Tell me a little bit about this database.
Sure. So I can't talk about the database without talking about the Association of American Literary Agents. And that organization is kind of the governing body for literary agents. Not all agents are a part of it, but those who are a part of it have committed to a standard and a canon of ethics and working in integrity inside the publishing industry as literary agents.
Mhm.
And I guess it was 5 years ago now, I joined the board. I had been a member since 2002. And I was so excited when they asked me to be a part of the board. And I was like, oh, I got so many good ideas. At least I thought they were good. I have so many things that I wanted to see happen with the organization. And we started a DEI committee. The organization has all these different committees, international and contracts, but they didn't have a DEI committee and they didn't have a communications committee. So I was part of the kind of the beginnings of those two committees. And on the DEI committee, there were so many things that we wanted to do, but we were a specific type of trade organization. And we needed to have a nonprofit that could get grants. And so we needed to be a 501c3. And AALA was not a 501c3. So we started Literary Agents of Change with the idea of really trying to explore more ways to bring more people of color into the business. Agenting is a very hard, very, very tough business. It's, you eat what you kill, and you have to kind of have a way to kind of, I guess, take care of yourself while you're out there doing the hunt.
Right,
And
right.
so, as a result, it's a very difficult, and at that time, most agents lived in the New York area, and New York is a very expensive market to live in, and to get housing, all aspects of it. It was kind of like not really set up for the average person of color trying to get into this business. Anyone really, but especially people of color. If you don't come from money or have, a trust fund, or if you're not married to someone who can take care of you while you build your business, it's very tough. So anyway, the reality was that there were very few. I don't even know the number. It was a handful of Black agents. And the idea was to try to find ways to make agenting more accessible, and then to more people who were interested in it. And then also, once they did become agents, giving them visibility. And so we first started a fellowship program and then a mentorship program. The fellowship was for people who were outside of the industry, younger people, college students who wanted to come into agenting. And the mentorship program were for new into the business or people who were transitioning from other aspects of the publishing industry. So editors who wanted to become agents, but all people of color. And so we realized that, a lot of times agents kind of are behind the scene, and a lot of people just don't know, number one, what agents do. And then second, trying to find them.
Mm-hmm.
And people will Google search, okay, Black literary agents, and my agency would come up, but very few others would come up.
Mm-hmm.
And there aren't a lot of other Black owned literary agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are a lot more people of color who are agents, but they work for mainstream agencies.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted people to know that they existed, because there are authors out there who want to work with agents of color.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's this narrative that some authors receive that, oh, you don't look for an agent is supposed to find you. So yeah, I've been in communities, writing communities, where I've heard people say that rarely are you submitting your work. An agent is to express interest. So can you dispel some of those myths and
ways, like, for example, if you're a part of the Hurston Wright community, there are obviously going to be agents who are going to be interested in your work because they want the best of the best, and Hurston Wright creates and helps to develop the best in class. Mm-hmm. But there are also writers who are not taking courses or part of, organizations that really foster and help develop writers. And those people, you can submit to agents, and we're interested in having you submit. Right now, my submissions are closed because, for a myriad of reasons. Mm-hmm. But the biggest one is the fact that, I've been doing this for 24 years. Mm-hmm. And the sign of a good agent is that their people don't leave.
Right.
And the fact that they keep writing. And so, I do have other agents at the agency, and that was part of the idea of building the agency, to bring in more people of color too, who are interested in doing it, because there are a lot of fantastic writers out there, and I can't agent them all. So again, this database and website that we created will help give access to writers who are interested in finding an agent of color. And so, yeah, there are definitely agencies who go out and find, really skilled writers who have stories to tell. But the lion's share of authors who get agents, it's because they've submitted their work to an agency.
Can you give us the website and the name of the database for our listeners?
So Literary Agents of Change is laoc.org. And the database is called equitydirectory.org. Very simple. Equity Directory. Yeah.
I love it.
And I think as of maybe last week, we had 61 agents. Wow. I was blown away. Yeah.
Wow.
Blown away.
Are they agents so do the agents submit to be part of the database, or are you sourcing and researching to find them?
No, it's all um, what's the word? You go in and you put your information in.
Oh, okay.
Now there's definitely people that were like, hey, join the database, because we know you're a person of color and we
Right,
reach
right.
out to you. But the idea is that everyone will was it self-report.
That's wonderful.
Mhm.
So so I need you to know that this may be take one for us, or not take one, but part one for us, because in addition to being an agent and being so significant in the lives of writers, and I do want to do a quick plug that I mentioned earlier that you're the agent of Hurston Wright Foundation, because we released a book last summer on July
Right.
4th, How We Do It. It was edited by Jericho Brown with Darlene Taylor, over 30 Black writers sharing their ruminations on the craft of
That's
writing.
right.
And so that's definitely, folks can go to hurstonwright.org to learn more about that book. I had the pleasure, you talked very briefly about your DEI work with your agent association, but you were on the board. You're in community with many organizations in our literary landscape. I don't know if you're still on the board, but I know at some point you were on the board with AWP, the Association of Writing Programs, and you've been doing a lot of work
Yes.
around AWP's initiative to support writing programs at HBCUs, and just to really diversify this literary landscape for those coming out of MA programs, and those also publishing and going on to be thought leaders and significant figures within our literary landscape. So your work is so multifaceted, on top of the fact that you yourself are an author, right?
I'm an author, yes. So I've written 3 books. I'm working on a couple more. Um, 2 craft books. One is called You Should Really Write a Book, How to Write, Sell, and Market Your Memoir. And the second book is called Writing Great Books for Young Adults. And so both, and then I wrote a children's picture book for Scholastic called Never Finished, Never Done. Love that book.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I love that book.
Yes. And
Yeah, so and the craft books were born out of the idea that I really wanted to help authors understand how to best position themselves when they are reaching out to agents, both on the young adult side as well as the memoir side. When we think about, I still do a lot of conferences. There was a period of time where I was doing like between 30 and 50 conferences a year, just
mm,
going around the country, telling people about what it takes to get a literary agent, but also at the same time, keeping my finger on the pulse of what's going on in different parts of the country. And like you were talking about with trends, being in New York, it feels oftentimes, even though it's a quote melting pot, it oftentimes feels in the literary world very myopic.
yeah.
So the idea that, okay, I'm going to go to Alaska, I'm going to go to Kansas City, I'm going to go to Boston, different places to get a feel for what's happening in the literary community in those places and what kind of stories are people trying to tell. And when I was doing these conferences, people were pitching. I do maybe take 30 people at each conference. And of those 30 people, probably about 15 of them or even more were wanting to write memoirs. And I was realizing that conference after conference after conference, I was kind of getting pitched the same kind of ideas over and over again. And I realized, wait, I have to kind of help people understand how to make their book distinctive.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're writing a book about, I don't know, breast cancer recovery, and I've heard 10 others, what's going to make yours distinctive?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the idea behind that book. I break it up into different categories of memoir, and I help people understand what is that breakthrough kind of idea or how to position and how to share it so that I get excited about your breast cancer memoir
Mm-hmm.
versus the other 10 that I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where would you like folks to pick up that book, or all of your books? Where?
Well, in the publishing industry, we're very uh we love to say that you can buy this book anywhere books are sold. And that's what I'm going to say. You can
Well,
buy the book anywhere books are sold.
that's fantastic. And so that usually ends our interview, but I would like to give some unsolicited feedback because you didn't ask for this and you probably don't care. I need for you, I am actually shocked by the fact that your social media doesn't really have your face or your image a lot of times. I don't know if you're trying to be incognito, you don't want folks to recognize you on the street. But I really think that you have all of the makings of having a significant social media presence. If just the few things that you've mentioned are in your book, giving like bite-sized excerpts from your book with your full personality and full the hair, everything. Um,
I love big hair. I love big
Yes, I love
hair.
I am actually so surprised that our watchers cannot see your beautiful head of hair, but you look so beautiful now. But this is the first time I've ever seen you without your hair out. But I want to see this is the request is going on record. I want to see a Regina Brooks TikTok with book tips for authors looking to get an agent. And I want to put it on the record in case this is something that comes to be because I think it will be a smash and hit. You are definitely a history making agent. You have really created a pathway for many people to follow because of the really the spaces and the ceilings that you've broken for to make it possible for us to know that Black agents exist. You've gone through this whole interview without even acknowledging, well, one book, you talked about your first book, but you have sold many award-winning books, helped authors not only become published writers, but award-winning published writers. And so I just want to personally thank you for your presence in our industry and the work that you continue to do for writers of color and helping them get their voices out there. So thank you.
Thank you. And you will soon see more of me on social media. I have been kind of incognito and it's just nah. But I hired someone who's, very much on me about put yourself out there more.
Yes, I'm glad
So
I'm not the only one. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, because
yeah.
you have a lot to share, and a lot of folks don't realize who you are and what you are behind. You are behind a lot of the authors that we see that are familiar to us. It has a lot
Yeah.
to do with your hard work, and so we thank you, Regina Brooks. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me. And if you ever need me to come back and talk more, I am totally available.
Oh, I
So
love it.
thank you,
Okay.
thank you, thank you. And thank you so much for Hurston Wright. It's an incredible organization. And the things that are coming out of that program is just amazing. So
We thank
you
you.
keep up the good work as well.
Thank you.